After years of yo-yo dieting and food restriction, I was finally able to lose over 120 pounds and keep it off by ditching the rules and learning to eat intuitively. In this video, I'll share how using intermittent fasting, an anti-inflammatory diet, and managing food addiction enabled me to eat anything in moderation while transforming my health and body. Say goodbye to fad diets. 1. My history with fad dieting and binging. Like many, I struggled for years to keep weight off long-term, despite trying every fad diet out there. I'd lose some weight initially but would inevitably gain it all back, and more once a diet ended. The restrictive rules and deprivation would lead to intense cravings and binge eating. I knew extreme dieting wasn't realistic or sustainable for me. There had to be a better way. For many years, I tried every fad diet imaginable to lose weight, from low-carb to juice cleanses and more. I would manage to lose some weight at first, but would always end up regaining all the weight and more when I couldn't sustain the restrictive diet long-term. The arbitrary food rules and intense deprivation these diets required would lead me to eventually cave and engage in out-of-control binge-eating episodes. I realized extreme dieting was simply not realistic or maintainable for me no matter how hard I tried. I knew there had to be a healthier, more sustainable approach if I truly wanted to lose the weight and improve my habits. 2. How I broke free with intermittent fasting. The game changer was learning about intermittent fasting. By only eating within a set 8-hour window each day and fasting for 16 hours, I could eat normally without counting calories. The fasting periods regulated my hunger hormones, so I never felt deprived. My insulin resistance improved too, so my body began releasing stored fat for energy. What finally enabled me to break free from years of yo-yo and binge-restrict dieting was discovering intermittent fasting. This involves condensing your food intake into an 8-hour window like 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. daily, while fasting for the other 16 hours of the day. Even though I could eat whatever I wanted in those 8 hours without tracking calories, the 16 hours of fasting regulated my appetite hormones, which prevented cravings, deprivation, and binging. Intermittent fasting also improved my insulin resistance, allowing my body to begin burning stored fat for fuel. 3. Intuitive eating was essential. I also started eating more intuitively without food rules. Listening to my body's natural hunger and fullness signals prevented overeating. I gave myself unconditional permission to eat foods I loved in moderation. This broke the binge and restrict cycle for good. In addition to intermittent fasting, adopting a more intuitive eating approach was essential to breaking my chronic yo-yo dieting. I learned to pay attention and listen to my body's natural hunger cues instead of overriding them. Stopping when comfortably full prevented mindless overeating. I also gave myself unconditional permission to enjoy all foods in moderation without guilt or restriction. This intuitive eating approach finally helped me break free of the exhausting binge-restrict cycle for good. 4. Focusing on nutritious anti-inflammatory foods. Instead of tracking macros, I simply focused on incorporating more vegetables, fruits, legumes, lean proteins, and healthy fats into my meals. These nourishing anti-inflammatory foods kept me energized and satisfied while cutting cravings. Rather than tracking calories or macros, I shifted to simply focusing my diet on incorporating more nutritious anti-inflammatory foods. I emphasized eating more vegetables, fruits, legumes, lean proteins like fish and chicken, and healthy fats from nuts, seeds, and avocados. Eating these wholesome, minimally processed foods kept me feeling energized, satisfied, and free of cravings for inflammatory foods like sweets and fried items. 5. Increasing daily movement. Naturally, I looked for ways to increase my daily movement without exhausting exercise regimes. Taking the stairs, aiming for 10K steps daily, and doing home workouts 3x a week enabled me to burn more calories effortlessly over time. Instead of rigid workout schedules, I focused on slowly increasing my daily movement naturally. I took the stairs whenever possible, aimed to get 10,000 steps per day through walking, and started doing short 20-minute home workout videos 3 times per week. Over time, these small, consistent movement habits allowed me to burn significantly more calories each day without exhausting myself or needing a gym. 6. Getting quality sleep lowered my cortisol. Addressing my chronic stress and prioritizing 7-8 hours of quality sleep each night helped regulate my hunger hormones and cortisol levels. This reduced emotional eating and optimized my metabolic health. I made getting at least 7-8 hours of deep, quality sleep each night a priority. This helped lower my chronically high cortisol and regulate my hunger hormones that were contributing to stress eating. Addressing sources of stress through restorative habits like yoga also helped lower my cortisol levels. With healthier cortisol rhythms, my metabolism improved and emotional eating was reduced greatly. 7. Showing myself kindness and compassion. I worked on shifting my inner dialogue to appreciate my body and progress instead of criticizing myself over food choices. This broke the binge and shame cycle to cultivate a peaceful relationship with food. I consciously worked on silencing my inner critic and showing myself more kindness and self-compassion. I shifted my self-talk to focus on appreciating my body rather than beating myself up over food choices or weight. This shift in mindset broke the exhausting binge and shame cycle, empowering me to cultivate a peaceful, balanced relationship with food. 8. Allowing flexibility helped me stay consistent. Allowing occasional treats in normal portions prevented feeling restricted, which led to binging in the past. Giving myself unconditional permission to eat foods I loved in balance enabled consistency. I gave myself complete unconditional permission to enjoy treats I loved in reasonable portions. This flexibility prevented the intense feelings of restriction that had led to binging in the past. Allowing some balanced flexibility with no guilt is what enabled me to stay consistent long-term. 9. Staying consistent. 80-20 perfection was not the goal. Consistency was key. Keeping up my healthy habits 80% of the time meant slip-ups didn't derail me. Ditching all-or-nothing thinking was freeing. My aim was not rigid perfection, but rather relaxed consistency with my new habits around 80% of the time. This meant the occasional enjoyment of treats or slip-up did not derail my progress. 10. Managing triggers was essential. Recognizing my trigger foods and situations allowed me to regulate my exposure accordingly. Wisdom about my triggers gave me control without total restriction. Moderation became possible. Taking note of specific trigger foods and situations that tended to cause me to overeat or binge eat was pivotal. This self-awareness allowed me to regulate my exposure to these triggers mindfully. By ditching extreme diets and adopting sustainable lifestyle habits focused on intuitive eating, managing food addiction, intermittent fasting, and anti-inflammatory nutrition, I lost 120 pounds and have kept it off. Listening to my body and being kind to myself truly transformed my health. Consistency and compassion are key, not perfection. What changes can you start today? Let me know in the comments. Grab my free guide to sustainable weight loss using the link below.